The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 in the morning, and Maya's hand shot out from under the covers to silence it. She lay there for a moment in the darkness of her tiny studio apartment, staring at the ceiling. Her feet still ached from yesterday's double shift. Today would be another one. She dragged herself out of bed and stumbled to the bathroom. The face looking back at her from the mirror seemed older than 28. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair that needed washing. She'd get to it tomorrow. Maybe. The coffee maker sputtered to life while she pulled on her black pants and white button-down shirt. This was her uniform now. Not the flowing dresses she'd imagined wearing on stage when she was younger. Not the elegant concert attire she'd dreamed about back in college. Just the standard outfit of someone who served other people their meals. Her music degree hung on the wall near her bed. She'd stopped looking at it months ago. What was the point? That piece of paper had cost her $60,000 in student loans and landed her exactly nowhere. Well, not nowhere. It had landed her at the Sterling Club carrying plates and pretending to smile. The subway ride to work was packed as always. Maya stood pressed between a man reading his phone and a woman sleeping against the pole. She used to spend these commutes listening to classical music on her headphones, analyzing the compositions, imagining herself performing. Now she just tried to stay awake. The Sterling Club sat in the heart of the city's financial district. It was the kind of place where a single meal cost more than Maya made in a week. She entered through the back door, the staff entrance, and immediately smelled the combination of expensive coffee and cleaning products. Victor, the manager, was already there, checking his tablet and looking stressed. He always looked stressed. Running a restaurant for millionaires apparently did that to a person. "You're early," he said without looking up. "I'm always early," Maya replied, heading to the staff room to stash her bag. Her co-worker Beth was already there, looking just as tired as Maya felt. They'd become friends over the past year, bonded by shared exhaustion and the strange intimacy of watching rich people at their worst. "Big night tonight," Beth said, tying her apron. "Some entertainment company rented out the whole main dining room. Victor's been losing his mind about it all week." Maya nodded, grabbing her own apron. Another private event. That meant even bigger tips if they were lucky, but also meant dealing with people who treated servers like furniture. The morning shift was the usual routine. Prep work, setting tables, polishing wine glasses until they sparkled. Maya's hands moved automatically, her mind somewhere else. It was always somewhere else these days. Around 11, the lunch crowd started arriving. Business people in expensive suits talking loudly about deals and stocks and things Maya didn't understand or care about. She smiled, took orders, brought food, cleared plates. Over and over, "More water, please, and is this organic?" "I'll have the salmon. But tell the chef no butter, no oil, no salt, and cook it for exactly 4 minutes. Maya wanted to scream sometimes, but she smiled instead. She always smiled. During her lunch break, she sat in the alley behind the restaurant, eating leftover bread and scrolling through her phone. A notification popped up from her old college roommate. Photos from a concert. Her roommate had made it somehow. She was touring with an orchestra now, living the dream they'd both shared. Maya closed the app. She was happy for her friend. Really, she was. But it hurt to look. The afternoon dragged on. More tables. More smiles. More pretending that her feet didn't feel like they were on fire. Around 4, Victor called everyone together for a quick meeting about the evening's event. "This is important," he said, his voice tight. "Nexus Entertainment is one of our biggest clients. Film producers, actors, tech investors. Everyone needs to be perfect tonight. Absolutely perfect." Maya exchanged glances with Beth. "Perfect. Sure. No pressure." They had an hour to prepare the main dining room for the evening. The tables were rearranged, special linens brought out, flowers delivered and arranged. The room looked like something from a magazine. In the center of it all sat the grand piano. Maya paused when she saw it, like she always did. It was a Steinway, probably worth more than she'd earned in 5 years. Beautiful dark wood, keys that gleamed under the chandeliers. It had been sitting there silent ever since she started working at the Sterling Club. Victor said they used to have a pianist, but that was before her time. Before the budget cuts, she walked past it, running her fingers briefly along the edge. Her hands remembered what it felt like to play, late nights in the practice rooms at college. The weight of the keys, the way a good piece of music could make everything else disappear. "Stop daydreaming," Victor snapped as he walked by. Guests arrive in 20 minutes. Maya pulled her hand back and returned to work. The guests started arriving at 6. They came in groups, laughing and talking, already holding glasses of champagne. The women wore dresses that cost more than Maya's rent. The men had watches that probably cost more than her car. Used to have a car that had been repossessed 8 months ago. Maya fell into her routine. Take orders. Bring drinks. Clear plates and smile. Don't make eye contact for too long. Don't speak unless spoken to. Be invisible. That was the trick to being a good server at a place like this. You had to be there but not there. Present but invisible. Helpful but unnoticed. She caught fragments of conversations as she moved through the room. The studios, offering $8 million for the rights on. My agent says we can negotiate for a better percentage, or did. You see who they cast? Absolutely brilliant choice. These people lived in a different world. A world where $8 million was just a number in a negotiation. Where opportunities came easily. Where dreams actually came true. Maya had stopped having dreams. Dreams required hope, and hope required energy. And she had none left. Around 7:30, she noticed Victor looking increasingly nervous. He kept checking his phone and glancing toward the entrance. Something was wrong. Beth noticed it too. What's going on? Maya asked when they both ended up near the kitchen at the same time. I think the entertainment canceled, Beth whispered. I heard Victor on the phone earlier. Something about a string quartet that couldn't make it. Maya looked out at the room full of wealthy, important people. They were expecting something. Some kind of performance, and Victor was about to disappoint them. She felt a strange flutter in her chest. An old feeling. One she hadn't felt in years. The piano sat there in the center of the room, still silent, still waiting. Her fingers twitched at her sides. She could feel the phantom sensation of keys beneath them. She knew dozens of pieces by heart. Hundreds, maybe. They were still there in her memory, stored away like treasures in a locked box. But that was crazy. She was a waitress. She wasn't a musician anymore. That dream had died a long time ago, buried under student loan payments and double shifts and the crushing weight of reality. She turned away from the piano and went back to work, invisible, professional, safe, but throughout the rest of the dinner service, she kept glancing back at it, and it kept seeming to look back at her. By 8 o'clock, Victor was sweating. Maya could see it from across the room. He kept dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief and making quiet, urgent phone calls near the bar. The guests were finishing their main courses and the room was getting louder. Wine had been flowing freely, and people were getting comfortable, their voices rising. This was usually when the entertainment would start. Maya had worked enough private events to know the rhythm. Dinner, then some kind of performance, then dessert and coffee while people mingled. But tonight there would be no performance. Beth sidled up next to Maya as they both stood near the kitchen entrance. He's panicking. I've never seen Victor panic before. First time for everything, Maya muttered, balancing 3 empty plates on her arm. You should see what they're saying at table 6, Beth continued. Someone just asked when the music starts. Victor looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Maya glanced over at table 6. She recognized one of the faces from movies. Not a huge star, but someone she'd definitely seen before. The woman was beautiful, probably in her early 40s, wearing a deep blue dress that looked like it had been painted on. Next to her sat a man with silver hair and an expensive watch, talking animatedly on his phone. The energy in the room was shifting. People were starting to notice the absence of something they'd been promised. Disappointment had a particular sound in places like this. It started as confusion, then moved to irritation, then to the kind of entitled anger that came from people who weren't used to being let down. Maya dropped off the dirty plates and grabbed a water pitcher. As she moved through the room refilling glasses, she heard more comments. I thought there was supposed to be music. Victor promised us a string quartet. This is disappointing. I was looking forward to some culture. Culture. Maya almost laughed. These people wouldn't know real culture if it hit them in their perfectly maintained faces. They wanted background music to make their expensive dinner feel even more exclusive. They wanted ambiance they could Instagram. But she kept her face neutral and kept pouring water. Victor appeared next to her so suddenly she almost spilled. I need to talk to you, he said quietly. Maya set down the pitcher and followed him to a quiet corner near the coat check. He looked desperate. His usual composure had completely cracked. Can you play piano? He asked. The question hung in the air between them. Maya felt her heart skip. What? Piano, can you play it? I saw your resume when you applied. It said something about music school. Maya's throat went dry. That was years ago. I'm desperate here. Victor interrupted. These people are expecting entertainment. The quartet canceled at the last minute. I need something. Anything. Can you play or not? Maya looked past him at the Steinway sitting in the center of the dining room. Her hands started trembling. I haven't played in front of people in over 3 years. But you can play? Technically, yes, but that's all I need to know. Victor was already walking away. 20 minutes, just give me 20 minutes of background music. Nothing complicated. Just pleasant. Can you do that? Maya stood frozen. Every instinct told her to say no, to make up an excuse, to stay invisible and safe in her role as a waitress. But there was another voice in her head, quieter, older. The voice of the girl who'd fallen in love with music when she was 7 years old. The girl who'd practiced until her fingers bled. The girl who'd believed that music could change the world. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll do it. Victor's relief was visible. Thank you. Just don't embarrass me, all right? He disappeared, back into the dining room, leaving Maya alone with her racing thoughts. Beth found her a minute later. Did Victor just ask you to play the piano? He did, and you said yes? I did. Are you crazy? Beth looked genuinely concerned. Maya laughed, but it came out shaky. Probably. I haven't touched a piano in forever. My hands are going to shake. I'm going to forget everything. This is going to be a disaster. Then why did you agree? That was the question, wasn't it? Maya looked at her friend and tried to put it into words. Because I'm tired of being invisible. Because that piano has been sitting there for months, and every time I see it, I feel like I'm losing a piece of myself. Because maybe I need to remember what it feels like to be the person I used to be. Beth squeezed her arm. You've got this. Maya wasn't so sure. She went to the staff bathroom and locked herself in. Her reflection looked terrified. She splashed cold water on her face and tried to breathe normally. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. What was she going to play? She ran through possibilities in her mind. Something classical? Too pretentious for this crowd. Something modern? She didn't know any of the current popular pieces. Then she remembered. There was a piece she'd written herself back in the hardest days after graduation, when the rejection letters had piled up, when she'd realized that talent wasn't enough, that the music industry didn't care about another desperate graduate with dreams and debt. She'd poured all of that pain into a composition. She'd never performed it for anyone, never even finished writing it down. It existed only in her memory and her fingers. It was deeply personal. Raw. Not the kind of thing you played at a fancy restaurant for strangers. But it was the only thing that felt right. Maya dried her hands and left the bathroom. The dining room was visible through the doorway. The guests were getting restless. Some were checking their phones. Others were looking around expectantly. Victor was near the bar watching the room like a general observing a battle about to be lost. She walked toward the piano. Each step felt surreal. The room didn't quiet. Nobody noticed another staff member moving through the space. She was still invisible in her server uniform. The piano bench was smooth under her hands as she adjusted it. She sat down slowly, feeling the familiar position. Her back straight, her feet on the pedals, her hands hovering over the keys. The conversation continued around her. A burst of laughter from table 3. Someone's phone ringing and being quickly silenced. The clink of wine glasses. The murmur of dozens of separate discussions happening simultaneously. Maya looked down at the keys. They were beautiful. Perfect. Waiting. Her hands were still trembling, but she placed her fingers in position anyway. The cool ivory felt like coming home. She took a deep breath. Then another. She could still walk away. Go back to being a waitress, stay safe, stay invisible, or she could play. The first note was soft, tentative, a single key pressed with the gentleness of someone touching something precious. The sound rippled out into the room, almost inaudible under the noise of conversation. Then came the second note, and the third. The melody began to build, quiet but insistent. Maya's fingers found their rhythm, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought failed. The piece started in a minor key, melancholic and searching. It captured the feeling of being lost, of having dreams that seemed impossible, of waking up every morning in a life that felt like someone else's mistake. At table 9, a woman paused mid-sentence. She'd heard something, just a fragment of melody, under the noise, but enough to make her stop talking and listen. Maya didn't notice. Her eyes were closed now. She was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere the debt didn't matter. Somewhere the double shifts and aching feet and disappointed dreams couldn't reach her. She was in the music, and the music was in her, and for the first time in 3 years she felt whole. The melody shifted, still in minor but with hints of something else creeping in. Hope, maybe, or defiance. The insistence that even in darkness beauty could exist, that even broken things could create something whole. More people were stopping their conversations now. At table 6, the actress in the blue dress set down her wine glass. At table 3, the man with the expensive watch ended his phone call. One by one, the voices in the room began to fade. Maya's hands moved faster now, more confident. The piece was building toward something. She'd written this section during a particularly bad night, after a rejection from yet another orchestra. She'd been so angry. Angry at the world, angry at herself, angry at the gap between what she'd dreamed and what she'd received. That anger poured through her fingers now, transformed into cascading runs of notes that spoke of frustration and beauty tangled together. The piano sang under her hands, loud enough now that it couldn't be ignored. The last conversation died away at table 12. Complete silence fell over the dining room like snow. 70 people, some of the wealthiest and most powerful in the city, had stopped everything to listen to a waitress play piano. Maya didn't know. She was somewhere else entirely, lost in the landscape of her own composition. The music had taken her to a place beyond the Sterling Club, beyond the dirty apron and the aching feet, and the crushing weight of failed dreams. Her fingers danced across the keys with the kind of fluidity that comes only from years of practice and pain. The piece shifted again, moving through different emotional territories like a journey through a complicated inner world. There were moments of quiet desperation, single notes hanging in the air like questions with no answers, then sudden bursts of complex harmony that spoke of the chaos of trying to survive in a world that didn't care about your talents. At table 6, tears began sliding down the actress's face. She didn't wipe them away. She just sat there, perfectly still, letting them fall. The man next to her had his eyes closed, his expression unreadable but intense. Near the bar, Victor had stopped panicking. He stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, staring at the woman he'd hired to carry plates. He'd seen her resume. He'd known she had a music degree. But knowing someone studied music and hearing them create something this powerful were entirely different things. Beth stood near the kitchen entrance with her hand over her mouth, tears in her own eyes. She'd known Maya for over a year. They'd shared countless breaks together, complained about difficult customers, supported each other through the daily grind of service work. But she'd never known her friend could do this. The music built to a crescendo. Maya's whole body was involved now, swaying slightly with the rhythm, her face a mask of concentration and release. This section represented the moment when you either give up or decide to keep fighting despite everything. It was dissonant and beautiful, harsh and tender, angry and hopeful all at once. A man at table 4 pulled out his phone, not to scroll or text, but to record. Others followed. Soon several phones were pointed at Maya, capturing this unexpected moment for an audience beyond the room. The melody softened again, moving into major key territory for the first time. This was the part Maya had written last, months after the initial composition. It represented acceptance, not giving up, but accepting that the path forward might look different than expected. That maybe success wasn't what she'd imagined. That maybe there was beauty in the struggle itself. Her fingers slowed, playing with a gentleness that made the previous intensity even more striking by contrast. The notes hung in the air like delicate things, each one mattering, each one a small piece of a larger truth. The woman in the blue dress had stopped crying, but her face still glistened with tears. She leaned toward the man beside her and whispered something. He nodded without taking his eyes off Maya. A server from the kitchen had crept into the dining room to see what was happening. Then another. Soon the entire kitchen staff was standing in the doorway watching one of their own transform from invisible worker to artist before their eyes. Maya's composition moved toward its conclusion. The ending she'd written was intentionally ambiguous. Not happy, not sad, but something in between. A musical question mark. An acknowledgement that the story wasn't over, that life continued in its messy, complicated way, but that moments of transcendence could exist in the middle of the struggle. The final section was almost minimalist. Single notes with long spaces between them. Each note given room to breathe and resonate. The silence between the sounds became as important as the sounds themselves. Then came the last note. A single key struck with perfect weight, neither too soft nor too hard. The sound filled the room and then slowly faded into nothing. Maya's hands remained on the keys. Her eyes were still closed. She was breathing hard, as if she'd run a marathon. In a way, she had. She'd run through 3 years of suppressed emotion in less than 5 minutes. The silence after the final note stretched out. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. The room held its breath. Then someone started clapping. It was the man at table 6, the one with the silver hair. He stood up as he applauded, his hands coming together with force and purpose. The woman in blue joined him immediately, also standing, her face still streaked with tears. Then table 3 stood. Then table 9. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet, applauding like their lives depended on it. The sound was thunderous, echoing off the high ceilings of the Sterling Club's dining room. Maya's eyes snapped open. For a moment, she didn't understand what was happening. The applause crashed over her like a wave, disorienting and overwhelming. She turned on the piano bench and saw 70 people standing, clapping, some with tears on their faces, all looking at her with expressions she couldn't quite process. She stood up shakily, her legs weak. The applause continued. Someone whistled. Someone else called out "Brava!" Her face flushed hot with a mixture of embarrassment and something else. Something she hadn't felt in so long she'd almost forgotten what it was called. Pride. Before Maya could fully process what was happening, people started moving toward her. The woman in blue reached her first, navigating between tables with purpose. "That was extraordinary," she said, and Maya realized her voice sounded familiar. Where had she heard it before? "Absolutely extraordinary. Where did you learn to play like that?" I studied music. In college." Maya's voice came out small and uncertain. "And the piece you just played?" The man with silver hair had joined them. "Was that an original composition?" Maya nodded, unable to form words. More people were gathering around the piano now. Business cards appeared in hands like magic tricks. A man in an expensive suit was talking about recording opportunities. A woman with sharp eyes and sharper jewelry was asking about representation. Someone else wanted to know if she'd studied in Europe. The questions came too fast. Maya felt dizzy. Victor appeared at her elbow. His expression transformed from earlier panic to something like awe. Or maybe calculation. Probably both. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victor said in his professional voice, trying to manage the crowd that was forming. Perhaps we could give her a moment. But nobody was listening to Victor. They pressed closer, all talking at once. All wanting something from this woman they'd barely noticed an hour ago when she was filling their water glasses. Beth pushed through the crowd and grabbed Maya's hand. "Breathe," she whispered. "Just breathe," Maya tried. But breathing was difficult when your entire world had just flipped upside down. 20 minutes ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was the center of attention for some of the most influential people in the entertainment industry. The woman in blue managed to create some space by physically stepping between Maya and the crowd. "Everyone, please, give her some room." There was authority in her voice that made people actually listen and step back slightly. She turned to Maya with a kind smile. "I'm sorry. We're overwhelming you. It's just that what you played was genuinely moving. And people in this business are always looking for real talent. Most of what we hear is technically perfect but emotionally empty. What you just did was the opposite. It was real. Thank you, Maya managed to say. Her hands were shaking again, but for different reasons now. I'm Cristina Valdez, the woman continued. I produce films. We've been searching for a composer for a project I'm developing. 8 months of auditions and nobody has felt right. But what you just played... She paused, seeming to search for words. It had the exact emotional quality we need. Would you be interested in discussing it? Maya stared at her. Cristina Valdez. The name clicked into place. She'd won an Academy Award 3 years ago. She produced independent films that actually meant something. And she was standing here in the Sterling Club asking Maya if she wanted to work on a project. I'm just a waitress, Maya said, hating how small her voice sounded. Christina's expression shifted to something fierce. No, you're a composer who currently works as a waitress. There's a difference. Those words hit Maya harder than the applause had. A composer who currently works as a waitress, not a failed musician, not someone who'd given up. Just someone whose current job didn't define their identity or potential. I'd like that, Maya said, finding her voice. I'd like to discuss it very much. Christina pulled out a business card and pressed it into Maya's hand. Call my office tomorrow. We'll set up a proper meeting. Other cards followed. Producers, agents, investors, musicians. Maya's hands filled with small rectangles of expensive cardstock, each one representing a door that had been locked to her for years, suddenly cracking open. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Maya somehow managed to finish her shift, though her hands trembled every time she picked up a plate. The guests who had ignored her before now smiled at her. Some even thanked her personally when she cleared their tables. The transformation from invisible to visible was jarring. When the event finally ended around 11, Maya sat in the staff room with Beth, staring at the pile of business cards on the table between them. This is insane, Beth said for probably the 20th time. Do you know who some of these people are? Maya picked up one of the cards. David Chen, founder of Meridian Capital. She'd read about him in business magazines. Billionaire tech investor. She picked up another. Robert Zhang, senior vice president at Paramount Studios. Another one. Lisa Torres, one of the most powerful talent agents in the city. I don't understand why they care, Maya said quietly. It was just one song. It wasn't just one song, Beth leaned forward. I've worked here for 3 years. I've seen professional musicians perform in that room. String quartets, jazz pianists, even a guy who played the cello for some European orchestra. None of them made people cry. None of them made the entire room go silent. What you did tonight was different. Maya wanted to believe her, but years of rejection had built walls around hope, and those walls didn't come down in one evening. Her phone buzzed. A notification from social media. Someone had tagged her in a video. She opened it with shaking hands. It was her, playing the piano, filmed from someone's phone at one of the tables. The video quality wasn't great, but the audio was surprisingly clear. She watched herself, lost in the music, completely unaware of being recorded. The comments were already piling up. Who is this? That gave me chills. Why is she wearing a server uniform? This is what real talent looks like. Someone sign this woman immediately. The video had been posted 20 minutes ago and already had thousands of views. As Maya watched, the number climbed higher. 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, Maya, Beth said softly. I think your life just changed. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in her studio apartment staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the evening over and over. The feel of the piano keys. The moment she'd realized the room had gone silent. Cristina Valdez's face streaked with tears. The applause that seemed to go on forever. She kept picking up the business cards from her nightstand and reading them, making sure they were real. Making sure the whole thing hadn't been some elaborate dream. Around 3 a.m, she got up and made tea. The video from the Sterling Club had gone viral. Completely viral. Over 1 million views now. It had been picked up by music blogs and entertainment news sites. People were trying to figure out who she was. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications. Friend requests from strangers. Messages from people she'd gone to college with who hadn't spoken to her in years. Texts from her mother asking if it was really her in the video everyone was sharing. At 9 the next morning, exhausted but too wired to sleep, Maya called Cristina Valdez's office. The assistant who answered seemed to be expecting her call. Ms. Valdez has been waiting to hear from you. Can you come in this afternoon? Say 2 o'clock? Maya agreed, hung up, and then stared at her closet in panic. What did you wear to meet with an Academy Award-winning producer? All she had were server uniforms, old jeans, and a few dresses from college that didn't fit anymore. She ended up borrowing an outfit from her upstairs neighbor, a woman named Rachel who worked in corporate law. A simple black dress and blazer that made Maya feel like she was playing dress up, but at least looked professional. The taxi ride to Christina's office felt surreal. The building was in the Arts District, a renovated warehouse with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. The lobby had original artwork on the walls. The receptionist offered her sparkling water and treated her like an actual person, not an inconvenience. Christina's office was on the 4th floor. When Maya walked in, the producer stood up from behind her desk with a genuine smile. Thank you for coming. Please sit. Christina gestured to a comfortable chair near the window. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea? I'm fine, thank you. Maya perched on the edge of the chair, trying not to look as nervous as she felt. Christina sat across from her, not behind the desk, making the conversation feel less formal. I want to start by saying I've watched that video about 50 times since last night. Every time it hits just as hard. What you played was remarkable. Thank you. I'm still processing all of this. I'm sure you are. Christina leaned back in her chair. Let me tell you about the project. It's a film about resilience, about people who face impossible odds and find ways to keep going. Not a happy story, but a true one. We've been looking for a composer who understands that emotional complexity, someone who can capture both the struggle and the beauty. When I heard you play last night, I knew we'd found that person. Maya's heart was racing. I've never scored a film before. I don't have any experience with that. You have something more important than experience. You have authenticity. You understand the subject matter on a personal level. That comes through in your music. Christina paused. Unless I'm wrong. Unless everything I heard last night was just technical skill. No, Maya said quickly. It wasn't technical. That piece I played. I wrote it during the worst time of my life, after graduation when I couldn't find work as a musician, when I realized all my training might have been for nothing, when I was taking on double shifts just to make minimum payments on my loans. Christina nodded slowly. That's what I heard. That kind of honesty can't be faked. And it's exactly what this film needs. She pulled out a folder and handed it to Maya. This is the script. I want you to read it and tell me if you connect with it. If you do, we'll talk about next steps. Maya took the folder with trembling hands. The title page read, Resilient by Catherine Wu. There's no pressure, Christina continued. If you read it and don't feel it, that's okay. But if you do feel it, I'd like to offer you the job. Composer for the film. Full creative control over the music, credit, pay, everything you'd need to actually do this professionally. Why me? The question burst out before Maya could stop it. You could hire anyone. Someone with a track record. Someone proven. Christina smiled. Because proven doesn't always mean best. Some of the most powerful art comes from people who haven't been given chances yet. People who are hungry. People who have something to say. You're that person. I saw it last night. They talked for another hour. Christina explained the timeline, the budget, the vision for the film. She introduced Maya to her assistant director and her production coordinator. Everyone treated Maya like she belonged there, like she wasn't a waitress who'd stumbled into this by accident. When Maya finally left the office, clutching the script and a contract to review, she felt like she was floating. She walked for blocks without any destination, just processing what had happened. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello, is this Maya Rodriguez? A woman's voice, professional and warm. Yes? My name is Jennifer Kim. I'm a talent agent with Morrison Creative. I saw your performance last night and I'd love to discuss representation. Do you have an agent currently? No. I don't have anything currently. Would you be interested in meeting? I think we could do great things together. Maya scheduled another meeting for later that week. Before she could even process that call, another one came in. Then another. Producers, agents, music directors. Everyone wanted to talk to the waitress who'd made Millionaires cry. By the time she got home, she had 7 more meetings scheduled over the next 2 weeks. The viral video had done something she'd never been able to do for herself. It had made her visible. That night, Maya sat at her tiny kitchen table and read Christina's script. She cried 3 times. The story was beautiful and heartbreaking. It was about a single mother working multiple jobs to support her kids while trying to pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. It was about sacrifice and hope, and the gap between what we want and what we get. Maya understood this story in her bones, and already, melodies were forming in her mind. Musical themes that could capture the protagonist's struggle. Harmonies that could underscore the moments of small triumph. Dissonance for the setbacks. Beauty for the persistence. She pulled out manuscript paper, something she hadn't touched in over a year, and started writing. The notes flowed from her pen like they'd been waiting for this moment. Like they'd been stored up inside her during all those double shifts and aching feet and disappointed dreams. She worked until 4 in the morning, filling page after page with musical ideas. When she finally stopped, her hand was cramping and her eyes were burning, but she felt more alive than she had in 3 years. 3 months later, Maya sat in a professional recording studio, watching through the glass as musicians played her composition. The words still felt strange and wonderful in her mind. The studio was in a converted factory building, all exposed beams and soundproofed walls. The equipment alone probably cost more than she'd made in 5 years of waiting tables. 10 musicians sat with their instruments, playing a piece that had existed only in Maya's head and on manuscript paper until today. Christina sat next to her in the control room, listening intently. The director, a quiet man named Thomas Chen, sat on the other side. The sound engineer adjusted levels and made notes on his computer. Maya had spent the last 3 months working harder than she'd ever worked in her life. Christina hadn't been exaggerating about full creative control. She'd given Maya complete freedom to compose, to experiment, to fail and try again. It had been terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. The piece the musicians were playing now was for the film's opening sequence. It needed to capture the moment when the protagonist, exhausted from a night shift, watches the sunrise and decides to keep fighting for her dreams. Maya had written and rewritten it 17 times before getting it right. The final notes faded. Through the glass, the violinist looked up questioningly. "That was perfect," Maya said into the microphone. "Absolutely perfect. Can we do one more take, though? I want to try something with the cello in the 3rd measure." They did another take, and another. Maya had learned that perfection in music wasn't about technical precision. It was about capturing a feeling, a moment, a truth that resonated beyond the notes themselves. During a break, Christina pulled Maya aside. "I've been meaning to tell you something. The rough cut of the film is finished. Thomas and I watched it yesterday with your music. We both cried." Maya felt her throat tighten. "Really? Really? What you've created doesn't just accompany the story, it elevates it. It makes people feel things they didn't know they could feel." Christina paused. "We're planning to submit to major film festivals. I think this could be big." Maya didn't know what to say. 6 months ago, she'd been carrying plates and wondering if her music degree had been a complete waste. Now she was composing for a film that might premiere at Sundance or Toronto. Her phone buzzed. A message from Beth, her friend from the Sterling Club. "Saw your interview on that music podcast. You were amazing. Miss you around here, but so proud of you." Maya had given notice at the Sterling Club 2 months ago. Victor had tried to convince her to stay, offering her a permanent position as their house pianist. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same management that had eliminated the pianist position before she was hired suddenly wanted to create one again. Now that she'd become someone, she'd declined politely. Some doors, once you walked through them, you couldn't go back through even if you wanted to. The recording session went until 8 that evening. When it was finally done, Maya was exhausted but satisfied. She'd learned so much in 3 months. How to work with musicians who were more technically skilled than her. how to communicate her vision clearly, how to compromise when necessary and fight when it mattered. Jennifer Kim, the agent who'd called her after the viral video, had been instrumental in all of this. She'd negotiated Maya's contract, connected her with the right people, helped her navigate an industry she barely understood. They'd met for coffee the week after the Sterling Club incident, and Maya had signed with her immediately. "You have something special," Jennifer had told her. "Not just talent. Plenty of people have talent. You have perspective. You've lived in both worlds. You understand what it means to be invisible and what it means to be seen. That's rare, and it's valuable." Maya took the subway home, too tired to spring for a taxi. The car was crowded with the usual mix of people heading home after long days. Workers in various uniforms, students with headphones, tired parents with even more tired children. She looked at them and saw herself 6 months ago. People just trying to survive, carrying dreams they'd maybe given up on or maybe just set aside for later. She wondered how many of them had talents the world hadn't seen. How many were musicians or artists or writers working jobs that paid the bills but emptied their souls. When she got home, there was a package waiting outside her door. She opened it to find a framed photo. Beth had sent it with a note. "Found this on my old phone. Thought you should have it." The photo showed Maya at the Sterling Club's piano, completely absorbed in playing, unaware of the camera or the room full of people watching. Her face showed such concentration, such raw emotion. She looked like someone who'd found their way back to themselves. Maya hung the photo on her wall, next to her music degree that she'd finally started looking at again. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen table, an email draft waiting. She'd been writing it all week, trying to get the words right. Finally, she just typed from the heart and hit send. The email was to her old college professor, Dr. Helen Martinez, who'd always believed in her even when Maya had stopped believing in herself. She'd lost touch after graduation, too embarrassed by her failure to launch a music career to stay connected. The email explained everything. The years of struggling, the double shifts, the moment at the Sterling Club, the film score, the opportunities that kept opening up. She thanked Dr. Martinez for the foundation she'd built, even though it had taken years for Maya to build anything on top of it. The response came 30 minutes later. "I always knew you had it in you. The timing wasn't right before, now it is. Proud doesn't begin to cover what I'm feeling." Maya cried reading that. Good tears. The kind that came from being seen and understood and validated after years of doubt. The next few months were a whirlwind. The film premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in September. Maya walked the red carpet in a borrowed dress, still not quite believing any of this was real. When her name appeared in the credits as composer, the small audience of industry professionals and critics applauded. The reviews were strong. Multiple critics mentioned the score specifically. "Rodriguez's compositions provide the emotional backbone of the film," wrote one reviewer. "A stunning debut from a composer to watch," said another. Offers started coming in. Other directors wanted to work with her. Music supervisors reached out about potential projects. A small indie record label asked if she'd be interested in recording an album of her original compositions. But the moment that mattered most came in the form of a letter. It arrived in a plain envelope with a return address in Chicago. Inside was a handwritten note from someone named Jessica Torres. "I saw your story online," it read, "about how you were working as a waitress and got your big break at that restaurant. I want you to know that story changed my life. I'm 23, working 3 jobs while trying to finish my novel. I was about to give up. I'd decided that dreams were for other people, not for people like me who have to worry about rent and student loans. But then I saw what happened to you and I realized something. You didn't get discovered because you were in the right place at the right time. You got discovered because you made a choice. You chose to sit at that piano even though you were scared. Even though you hadn't played in years. Even though you might have failed. You chose to try. That choice changed everything. So I'm making a choice too. I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep writing, because maybe courage matters more than circumstances. Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you for sitting down at that piano." Maya read the letter 3 times. Then she put it in a frame next to the photo from the Sterling Club. These were the 2 things she wanted to remember always. Not the red carpets or the reviews or the opportunities. Those were wonderful, but they weren't the point. The point was the choice. The moment when fear and hope collided, and she'd chosen hope. The moment when being invisible and being seen were both possibilities, and she'd chosen to be seen. That choice had changed everything. Not just for her, but apparently for other people too. People like Jessica in Chicago, working multiple jobs and holding on to dreams that felt impossible. Maya thought about that viral video that had started everything. Over 5 million views now. People still commented on it, still shared it, still found inspiration in watching a waitress transform into a musician in real time. But what they didn't see in that video was all the years that came before. The practice, the debt, the double shifts, the disappointment, the slow erosion of hope and the stubborn refusal to let it die completely. Success looked like magic from the outside. One viral moment and everything changed. But Maya knew the truth. It wasn't magic. It was a music degree that felt useless until suddenly it wasn't. It was skills built over years that sat dormant until the moment they were needed. It was a choice made in fear that turned out to be the bravest thing she'd ever done. A year after that night at the Sterling Club, Maya was invited to speak at her old college's graduation ceremony. She stood in front of hundreds of students about to enter a world that probably wouldn't be kind to their dreams, and she told them the truth. "Some of you will succeed right away," she said. "You'll graduate and step into careers that make sense, that follow a logical path from education to employment. For others of you, it won't work that way. You'll struggle. You'll work jobs that have nothing to do with your degree. You'll wonder if you made a mistake. You'll question whether you have what it takes. I'm here to tell you that those years won't be wasted. They'll be preparation for a moment you can't see coming, a moment when you'll have to choose between staying invisible and taking a risk. When that moment comes, and it will come, I hope you remember that every hard year was building toward something. I hope you sit down at your version of that piano. I hope you play." The students applauded. Some were crying. Maya saw herself in their faces, young and hopeful and terrified of what came next. After the ceremony, students lined up to talk to her, to take photos, to ask for advice. One young woman, barely 22, said something that stuck with Maya. "I'm about to graduate with a theater degree, and everyone keeps asking me what my backup plan is. Like theater isn't a real career. Like I should be planning to fail. What do you say to people like that?" Maya thought for a moment. "I say that sometimes your backup plan becomes your life, and that's okay too. I was a waitress for 3 years. That wasn't my dream, but it taught me things I needed to learn. It gave me material for my music. It made me hungry in a way that might not have happened if success came easy. So have a backup plan if you need one. Work whatever job pays the bills. But don't confuse your job with your identity. Don't let what you do to survive become who you are." The young woman nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." Later that night, back in her apartment, which was slightly bigger now but still modest, Maya sat at her new keyboard and played. Not for any project or deadline. Just for herself. Just because the music was there and needed to come out. She played the piece from the Sterling Club, the one that had changed everything. It sounded different now. Still honest, still raw, but with something new woven through it. Not just pain and struggle anymore, but also gratitude. Also wonder. Also the knowledge that sometimes life surprises you in the most unexpected ways. Through her window, the city lights glittered. Somewhere out there, other people were working double shifts and carrying secret dreams. Other people were choosing between safety and risk. Other people were about to sit down at their version of that piano. Maya hoped they would play. She hoped they would choose to be seen. She hoped they would remember that one moment of courage could change everything, because it wasn't about the destination. It was never about the destination. It was about the choice to keep going. The choice to try. The choice to sit down and play even when your hands were shaking and your heart was terrified. That choice, Maya had learned, was where real life began.